Welcome to part 2 of the handling and ergonomic modifications we're doing on my Honda Civic. In part 1 you may have seen that we installed front and rear camber arms and front and rear sway bars just to help with the handling of this EK CIVIC. So in this video we're going to be focusing on the interior modifications to make it more ergonomic and just make it just generally a nicer car to drive on the track. Today we're going to be installing this Sparco GRID-Q, and I've also received my side mount brackets from Crank Motorsport, and we're also going to be putting those on the Crank Motorsport seat brackets. And we're also going to be stealing the steering wheel out of the RX-7. I actually got this a few months ago, and this is the Personal Grinta, I think, 350mm. And we're going to be stealing that for Honda Nationals and putting it in the Civic to replace this stock wheel. So with that, we're also going to be installing a short hub and a quick release, and we'll get into that really shortly. Since the last video, I've also gone around and adjusted the heights on the car. Just generally, I've lifted the car up, but I've also given it a little bit more rake. It was actually a reverse rake before, and you shouldn't be running a tiny bit of rake on these cars. So I've gone ahead and done the heights. I've done an oil change, which I didn't think I was doing. But yeah, I feel really prepared. Hopefully the weather's good. All right, so let's get into it and let's get the seat out. The weather's been so tropical today. It's been drizzling on and off. But I guess now we mount up the seat to the rail, to the bracket, to the rail, and then we can just try to mock fit into the car. All right, so seat brackets, I got these from Crank just to match the rails, but this model is the heavy duty lightweight aluminium ones. You can also get them in steel. Chipped powder coated finish. Doesn't fit very well. I need to bore it out. So the Crank side mount bracket is a bit short for this Sparco seat. What I mean is the distance between this hole and this hole here, which is the only position it will mount in really, because it's such a small bracket. It's about 2mm short. So what I'm going to have to do is bore out probably this hole, bore it out to the side, and I'll do the same to the other side. Poured and polished seat bracket. Beautiful. Torque spec is 35.6 foot-pounds. Alright, so this is the right side, driver's side. Yeah, that's what the rail looks like. And just a quick look on how it sits on the rail. Just going to lay it over. Try and do this gently. It's pretty heavy actually. Alright. Yep, this is the right position. So yeah, fits pretty well. I think I'm going to be sitting really, really low. Anyways, what I might do is actually throw just this base into the car and see if I can line up the seat nicely to get the right slots, and then we can go and do a mock fit. Alright, let's look. Oh, other way around. So it's sitting in there pretty nicely. But I'm going to be critical and say that this fitment is rubbish. You know, all the holes line up, which is good. That's probably the most important thing, the holes line up. But these brackets, you know, they're meant to sit flush with the channel, which sits down on the floor pan, and it's not. So, yeah, it's not a huge problem. I guess it's still going to be okay to bolt the seat in, but it would have been nicer if the fitment was, yeah, a bit better than this. Oh well, it's cheap for a reason. Yeah, it's not bad at all. All right, so just continuing where I left it yesterday, I ended up taking the seat rail off and then putting this seat belt buckle thing on. So I've taken it off the stock seat, just 2 screws on that trim, and then putting the sliders on. Now I didn't have to put the sliders on, but I wanted the adjustability, and also I could do with the extra height. Just sit a little bit low. And yeah, there's going to be a few people driving this car. It just makes sense to go for the adjustability. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is bolt the seat rail back on and get it into the car. That's it, it's good. All right, a quick look at everything. Nice and stealthy. I really like it. The seatbelt buckle, there is a little bit of clearance, which is good. I thought it'd be rubbing, but turns out it's just okay. And what I'm going to do next is unbolt this seatbelt. I'm going to wrap it through this side entrance and then back through and bolt it down. That way when you've clipped the buckle on, you're nice and strapped in. Apart from that, really happy with how it turned out. Really good seating position. It's not as low as I originally had it, but this is a street car, and it is still quite a lot lower than factory. So yeah, really pleased. Tonight we'll move on to doing the steering wheel, but the car's pretty much ready to go. Really excited for Honda Nationals. And yeah, it's coming together. Tonight we're going to be installing the steering wheel from the RX-7 into the Civic. I'll show you guys what we need. So this is my personal steering wheel. I think it's the Grinta in the leather. I got this from JDM Yard, and it's already got that Works Engineering quick release that I use in the FD RX-7. I'm going to be installing this this Works Engineering short hub. I pulled this off one of my other cars, and this allows you to adapt any aftermarket steering wheel to the Honda Civic. But I'm not going to bolt just the steering wheel straight onto this. I'm going to be putting on another quick release. So this will allow me to use the steering wheel, so I can take it off the Civic, put it on the RX-7, take it off the RX-7, put it back on the Civic. I simply just don't drive both cars together. So this shouldn't be a problem. I'll be sharing this wheel for now. So what I'm going to do, because we have to remove the airbag, so the steering wheel and the airbag from the car, we're going to have to be careful with the airbag circuit. So I'm just going to disconnect the battery and then we'll remove the steering wheel. Okay, get that. Ugh. Let's chuck that in there. While we're here, I thought I'd show you guys what I meant when I said to thread it through this hole here. So what I did was unbolt it from there, and then you're just going to want to run it through the seat belt through that belt path, the hole there. The reason is because when you want to tighten the seat belt, you'll be sitting in the seat, you'll be able to buckle it through that hole, and it'll be clamping you down. If only our seat belts worked. If anyone has a really nice way to remanufacture these seat belts, you make an absolute killing. So onto the steering wheel. The first thing you want to do is make sure that the steering wheel is nice and center. The reason you want to do this is because when we install the new short hub, you want to make sure the splines are lined up so it is nice and center. No biggie if you make a mistake on it. I've done that before. You just have to remove the wheel again and bolt it back down. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is remove the tabs to access the torque screws for the airbag. So just use your fingernail there, pull it out. You should be able to see in there. I think that's a T40. I think it's a T40 torque screw. And there's one on each side. All right, so that torque screw in there, I believe it's a T30 or T40 torque screw, but you really need to be careful with that screw because if you thread that, if you run it off, you know, it's not going to be good. You're going to use an angle grinder to go at the wheels. So just gonna get that head in there. Just be gentle, make sure it's straight. And just like that. Yeah. Like that, and then repeat on the other side. With the screws removed, you can take this airbag assembly off. And then you're going to have to remove the grounding, which is a black plug, and then the yellow airbag connector. Just undo it off the clip. Just like that. And then all you have to do is to push this forwards and come straight out. Just like that. That's my airbag module. Let's go blow something up. So next we're going to remove this steering wheel, and a reminder again just to keep this wheel as neutral and straight as possible. You have a 14mm bolt holding the steering wheel down, and we're going to do that quickly with a rattle gun. Yep. And just make sure that when the bolt is loose, just to keep the bolt on there, because when we pull the wheel off, the last thing you want is, you know, the steering wheel to be in your face. To take the wheel off, you're going to need to use a bit of force. This wheel's been on there for 240,000 Ks, about 20 years, so it's going to be a while before it comes off. You want to move it side to side, give it a few bangs, that's it, it's loose. So just make sure again, it's nice and center, take the bolt out, and then that's the steering wheel. So next remove the steering rack trim. So just 3 screws, and this kind of subdivides in the middle. Subdivide, lol. Next the clock spring comes off. Just 3 screws. Then you're going to trace that clock spring back to the connectors under the rack, and all you have to do is unclip them. Alright, so when you're removing this clock spring, like I said, trace the wiring back, and you're going to want to unclip this from the steering column, and you'll see 2 plugs, a grey plug and a yellow plug. Yellow plug you just need to disconnect, that's for the airbag, and the red one is the horn. Alright, so I'm just trying to balance this camera. So just disconnect this grey one. Yep, and this yellow one, like that. And then the same as at the steering wheel, push that tab forwards, and then it'll unplug. And that's your clock spring loose. Okay, so this next part of the video may be important for most of you, but for some, if you don't care about your horn, you can skip this part of the video and move on. So what we've done is remove this clock spring. Now the clock spring has all these wires inside, it kind of rotates around in a coil. That allows you to rotate your steering wheel at the same time and still have these connections in place without breaking off those wires. Because we've removed this, the grounding source for the horn, which is this red wire, is no longer connected. So without the clock spring, you're not going to have a working horn button. So what I'm going to do is to keep this connector, to remove it from this clock spring, or if you don't want to touch the clock spring, you can just run just an additional wire to the existing plug. So I just need this grey plug, so on the other end I'm going to cut that red wire off. Goodbye clock spring harness. Just going to cut that red wire off, and then I'm just going to pull this through, and there we go. So I've still got that stock connector and this red wire for my horn contact. So now that we've got the stock horn contact and the red wire, this red wire will need to make electrical contact with my horn contact on the back of this short hub. And from the back of that horn contact, it goes into this wire, which will go through my quick release, through the horn button, and come through and re-ground through that spade terminal. So that is how the horn button circuit works. All we need to do now is find a way to make electrical conductivity between this wire and the back of this short hub. So the easiest way I've found to do this is to put a little eyelet at the end of this, something that will go around my screw, and we're going to crimp this eyelet onto the end of this red wire. Strip your red wire, always like to finish it off in this one. And squeeze them together. Alright, so we're back in the car with the connector we prepared earlier with that eyelet. So reconnect this grey plug and then reroute the red wire to where the clock spring is to go. Alright, so this red wire is our horn signal and we're going to secure it to where the clock spring is to go. I'm just going to use one of the screws and it all makes sense when we get the hub on. So I've just gone and got my short hub, and just like every other hub, make sure you line up that center marker and then you're going to put it down as straight as you can. Find the groove in the shaft and yep, that's on. All we need to do is find a way to make contact from this screw to the back of that hub, which is conductive. And the best way I've found, and I've done this on many cars, is to use a bit of welding filler rod. This is a piece of welding filler rod, it's aluminium. You can use a paper clip or anything conductive really. Cut a little piece at the end of it, and you're going to mold this to the car so that that eyelet always has contact with the back of the hub. I'm just going to grab the end with some long nose pliers and just make it bend like that. Just enough for that screw to sit on. Alright, so just made a little eyelet at the end. This is where the screw is going to go through. Yep. It's going to sit about there. Good, that's pretty close. What I'm going to do is cut it off a bit. I'm going to shorten it just a touch. Okay. My pliers. I'm going to shorten that just a touch. Yep. So I'm not sure if you can see from the video, but I've always got a contact to the back of the short hub. And what I'm going to do now is secure my short hub back with the bolt. And that's our horn wiring sorted. So at this point, let's make sure our horn wiring is good. So I've just quickly gone and connected the battery again, and I'm going to act as the button. So remember, when you press the button on the horn, you're essentially just connecting those two contacts together. Exactly the same thing as what we're going to be doing with these two terminals. I'm going to be discreet about this, it's quite late already, so I'm going to just gently, yeah, there we go. That was not discreet. We have a working horn. With the short hub installed, we're going to install the quick release. This part should be pretty straightforward, and I'm just going to take this out of the packaging. So this is the Works Engineering quick release. I'm actually their distributor in Australia, so if you need any of these, let me know, I'll hook you up. And what I'm going to be using is just this end of the quick release because I've already got another one installed onto my steering wheel. So I'm just going to pop this part off. And all I'm going to be using is this part of the quick release, and I'm going to install this onto the short hub. So these two spade terminals will connect to each other, blue to the black, and red to the blue. And again, there is a dot indicating the top of the hub, dot over there, and we're going to press that on. Now the quick release comes with the screws and also the Allen key you need, so just secure that onto the hub with the six screws. Done. That's it. Perfect. Let's see if the horn works. Yep, definitely works. All right, so hopefully the horn wiring wasn't too confusing. Can be a little bit daunting, but it's really not too bad. Just remember that red wire we cut off the clock spring, that's constant 12 volt. As soon as it's grounded, you're gonna get the horn go off. So now I'm gonna put the car back together, and tomorrow I'm gonna be taking her for an alignment at Jack's.